Hi, I'm Tony Suarez, former law professor, legislator, and your host for I Need to Know, a program of the Public Trust Network, a program, an interface between law and politics, where we try to bring you information, politics what's going on throughout the United States, particularly as it has to do with Puerto Rico. Today, our guest is United States Representative Darren Soto from Orlando.
Thanks for having me, Tony. It's great to chat as usual.
Thank you. It's great. Thank you very much for giving us your time on this event. And of course, this interview is all part of a large 3-day event that we're putting together here in Central Florida, which is a coalition of bar associations from Puerto Rico, Florida, and Chicago, Illinois, where we're interested. These are bar associations, or we call novelty or specialty bar associations that deal with Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans. And of course, it's been an idea of mine that we had to have a national platform for discussion on the issue of Puerto Rico, because it's not enough. If 100% of Puerto Ricans on the island wanted statehood or 100% wanted independence, it makes no difference because it's Congress. And this is not because I say so, it's because the United States Supreme Court has indicated that's the case. Puerto Rico is governed by the territorial clause, and only with Congress's approval will we ever have a solution to Puerto Rico that requires a solution. During the course of this next couple of days in a convention, which starts on the 28th and 29th at Florida A&M Law School in Orlando, we will be discussing all sorts of topics, including demographic winter that Puerto Rico is undergoing, economic collapse, which is hurting the island, part of which all of it becomes as a result of the status issue, which Puerto Rico is not a sovereign, neither sovereign of its own, nor is it a state, as a result of the conditions. And so we're, as lawyers, we feel responsible for bringing this forth as a form of education to our community. So we're doing it on the internet, we're doing it live programming, and starting today, this Thursday, and this interview, and La Prensa, we will be 4 weeks of advertising, giving these classes for free for all persons who are non-lawyers. Because lawyers got to pay, because these are CLE courses for us, but everyone else can come to the classes for free. So we really are trying to bring out a source of information for our community. And so this is a nonpartisan event. It is the bar associations themselves do not take a position whether Puerto Rico should be a state or should it be a nation. What we do position that we need to resolve a long-term problem that Puerto Rico has no control over its own economy. And so that is the setting for this thing. And with us, of course, we have the Congressman Darren Soto, who is, of course, a personal friend and a personal acquaintance. But beside that, he's doing the yeoman's job of bringing forth this issue to the United States Congress. You sit on the Interior Committee, and I was wondering if you can just give us a little briefing about your bill, the effort you have done in the past to try to bring this concept, this idea to the public in general.
First of all, Tony, thanks for having me. Thanks for your leadership in the Puerto Rico Bar Association. As a longtime affiliate member, although I'm not practicing any law lately, as a lawyer of Puerto Rican descent here in Central Florida, I just appreciate the longstanding relationship with the organization. We know that Puerto Rico is a territory disenfranchised of its right to be able to vote for President of the United States, the commander-in-chief, yet our people serve in higher percentages than the mainland in the military, and have served in 2 world wars in Korea, and continue to serve today in desegregated units and in units from the island. I could tell you, when I was in the middle of Afghanistan, I saw the Puerto Rico flag and saw the unit there. When I was in the middle of Iraq, in the desert, I saw the Puerto Rico flag and got to speak with both folks from the island and from Florida. And so it really gives you an idea of how patriotic a people we have. And, the battles are many in Congress because of Puerto Rico's territorial status, having one non-voting member, Congress, Jennifer Gonzalez-Colon, who we work with very closely, including right now with Tropical Storm Ernesto, where we saw President Biden approve the disaster relief, but we're going to have to work on oversight. There may be more funding we need to have to get to FEMA. So we're thinking of our brothers and sisters on the island. But that's just one of many things. Every couple of years, we have to work to pass Puerto Rico Medicaid reforms because they get less than even the poorest state, which is Mississippi. And so we have to get those numbers up so that they can have a long-term funding into their system. That's why the hospitals took such a beating after Hurricane Maria, is they were underfunded for many years. And a lot of the funding in hospitals across the nation, Medicare, Medicaid, and private insurance are part of that. Another battle is with—
I can tell you, I probably interrupt you, but pertinent to that particular point, because we in Central Florida, the beneficiaries, all the doctors that are fleeing Puerto Rico, you will learn this when you come to the conference and take one of the classes, but Puerto Rico is losing its medical class and its middle class. But certain doctors are coming here because the Medicaid reimbursement rate is so much different. And this is part of the problem.
Sure, absolutely. And all these battles that we fight every couple of years is because Puerto Rico is not a state, right? And so these are things we have to fight in statute for. The latest one is converting the NAP food assistance program to SNAP. I am on the Ag Committee this year and on the Energy and Commerce Committee, which we regulate every Fortune 500 company in America. And I use that job to help create more higher paying jobs in Central Florida. And so I work directly on the Medicaid issue in the Energy and Commerce Committee because we work on healthcare. And then I'm on the Ag Committee right now. I didn't get back on the Natural Resources Committee because they had less assignments after we got back into the minority. So I just want to make sure everybody knows I know what committees I'm on. I was on Interior last year on the Natural Resource Committee. I'm going to fight to get back on in the future. But right now I'm in a good position to work on the NAP to SNAP conversion, basically making sure that Puerto Rico is getting equal funding as states for their food assistance program. And it's also key for local agriculture. People think of federal benefits and they think of the citizen side of it, the families utilizing it, whether it's Medicaid or whether it's food assistance, but they often don't think about how it also stimulates the local businesses. So it ends up being a public-private partnership. So this helps boost local agriculture in Puerto Rico, which is an area that's underutilized. The island used to produce 100% of its food many generations ago. Now they produce less than 25%, especially post-Hurricane Maria. This is money that's just leaving the island, and it's jobs that especially as we get more technology, because they have a labor challenge down there. I don't know why, but they do. We'll leave that to everybody's guesses of why. But ag is manufacturing is doing well, tourism is doing well, but ag needs a lot more potential, and this NAP to SNAP program would help. So in Florida, for instance, for the school lunch program, half of all the fruits and vegetables have to be grown in Florida under our Fresh from Florida program. So you get how this creates that foundation of demand for local agriculture. And then finally, the last fight, and then I'll go into the bill itself, is all these major new laws that we passed last term, from the American Rescue Plan to the infrastructure law to the Inflation Reduction Act and the PACT Act, which helps our veterans. All those, we treated Puerto Rico equally. And that's key because funding is flowing down for the next 5 to 10 years. In Central Florida, it's expanding I-4 all the way down to Orange, Osceola, and Polk counties. We're expanding Sunrail and Brightline. We're expanding the airport, Point Santa Parkway, a bunch of different areas. And in down in Puerto Rico, it means a lot of new roads. Roads are being fixed and built, and the electrical grid, which is a key part of it, in addition to Hurricane Maria funding. But if we didn't put that in there, in most of these major laws, like Obamacare, for instance, or some of the tax cut laws that have passed, Puerto Rico wasn't included. And so they didn't get the benefit of these areas because if they were a state, they'd automatically be included. Otherwise, we have to each time fight these battles. So I wanted to go through the cost of what we face. Now to the bill itself, the Puerto Rico Status Act. This is the product of historic bipartisan negotiation. We started out, I'm just going to be fully transparent. I support statehood. I make no bones about it. My family has, a lot of my allies have. I work with all parties down in Puerto Rico, especially on all these other issues, which is like 90% of what we work on. with Puerto Rico state legislators and the governor and the resident commissioner. But I initially filed my Puerto Rico Statehood Act. There's been a lot of misinformation about it down in Puerto Rico. The bill established that if Puerto Ricans voted for statehood, or actually when they did, once the bill passed into law, it would be 90 days, and then Puerto Rico would become a state, right? 90 days. There's a lot of misinformation that from the moment I filed the bill, Puerto Rico is going to become a state in 90 days. That is not true. That is impossible. That doesn't make any sense because it wasn't a law. It was just a bill filed. But just in case, si nosotros tenemos amigos de la isla escuchando, 90 días después, pasando la Cámara del Senado y firmado al presidente. Now, we did see that push the label and really, first of all, get President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris to take a position that they would be supportive of statehood as his personal opinion. He said that in Kissimmee a couple of years ago. And then we were able to get both Resident Commissioner Jennifer Gonzalez Colon, Governor Pedro Polisi, Nydia Velasquez, AOC, myself, Steny Hoyer, and Raul Grijalva, all key negotiators, into a room. We had several meetings over multiple months, and I was there when the deal was struck. We Florida Ricans, we lift up the folks on the island, right? And so I was there to have Jennifer's back, but she was the point person negotiating because she represents the island. And then Nydia was negotiating on behalf of, other options. But it was the first mature moment we had was recognize that territorial status is flawed. We want to decolonize Puerto Rico. And so there's really only two ways to do that. You either have statehood or you have independence. And then, of course, you could be an associated state like Palau is, or Micronesia, but you're an independent country that just happens to have a few relationships by a treaty. Like you may use the dollar, you may use the U.S. currency, you may have agreements on defense. It's mostly foreign policy issues, not domestic policy issues. Those, it would be an independent country for all those things. And so the whole idea was include statehood, independence, and independence with free association. And the bill passed overwhelmingly with every Democrat and about 24 plus Republicans. We had some local folks like Bill Posey supported, obviously the resident commissioner, and a lot of folks in the Problem Solvers Caucus that I'm in. And that was the first time the House of Representatives ever voted on and passed a bill that would grant a pathway to statehood and, of course, a pathway to independence on the out of the House of Representatives. After a lengthy hearing that we had in Natural Resources, for those of you who are history buffs, that I know there's transcripts of it. I've gotten this really nice summary of it. All these debates happening that I know that you followed and others. And of course, now we're in a new term. The Republicans are in the majority. They have not really moved it along. We are really focusing on the Senate this term. And by the way, it shouldn't surprise all the constitutional buffs, the lawyers out there, that the Senate is way more sensitive to statehood than the House of Representatives, because they've had 100 senators for a long time, and they're sensitive to adding any more people to the most exclusive legislative club in the history of the world, right? And 100 senators is a nice number, 50 stars, all this stuff. I hear all this, right? And so we got to fight ahead, right? To in the Senate, we have some allies who have been pushing for the bill, and so we're really hoping we get at least a hearing vote, and even Manchin has come around to it. It goes into his committee, and so I'm hopeful they're way slow in the Senate. Don't even get me started. As a former House member, the real enemy is the Senate, and so they need to move more quickly than that. And then our hope is to get senators more familiar with it, because we did pass out of the House, but it took us
Right.
a year and 3/4 to get this through. And so, but you have the shadow delegation from Puerto Rico that comes each each month to work with the senators and try to encourage them on those things. So this is something we're going to continue to work on going forward.
Well, this is exactly the point, and you brought it all into view. This is exactly where we're going. As a bar association and this junction of bar association, it's not to push one way or the other. People in Puerto Rico have to make the decision, but we know that without a national platform, and I look toward, for example, what just happened with the National Black Journalists or the National Rifle Association. When you have a convention, a platform that is national, and then you can have the national candidates come and put forth their position, take a position, and that would also pique the interest of the guys in Montana and so forth, which you have to have in order to get a bill passed, because you've done all the yeoman's work to get your bill passed, but still got stuck. It didn't become law because it didn't get out of the Senate. So you've got to be able to bring a national platform, and that's what we're about. And so we're going to be with that bill and following that bill, and that'll be the subject of. We have 12 seminars or workshops going on during this summer. It's at Florida A&M Law School. We have law professors from 5 different law schools. We have professors from 4 other universities talking about, the demographics and other interesting facts about Puerto Rico, but all with the intent to bring information, not just to Puerto Ricans. We are making a big and concerted effort to bring non-Puerto Ricans, because I know that you must be educating your other colleagues from around the country about Puerto Rico, because they have, they have a lack of knowledge about it. So here with this kind of platform, I know, just like you said, maybe not this year, maybe not 2 years, but eventually this national platform will become something that we can really hang on a hat and bring a national politicians to the fore. So with that,
and we have,
go ahead.
Tony, we have a unique time right now. One of the 2 parties has a person of half Caribbean descent,
right.
of Jamaican descent, as our nominee. On the Democratic side, you have Jennifer Gonzalez Colon, who looks like the favorite to win the gubernatorial race. That was a tough gubernatorial primary because I worked so closely with both of them. But again, we in the diaspora, we cheer them on, and they make the decisions, right? And so we'll have, in all likelihood, a champion in the governor's mansion. We'll see what happens with the resident commissioner. I know all the major candidates, obviously, they come to Orlando quite a bit, and I'm down on the island, gosh, a half a dozen times a year. Although, my only gripe, it's almost always work. I almost never get to go down there to have any fun. Yeah. It's always like work all day, get a nice meal, work some more, get on a JetBlue plane, and come back to Orlando, right? But that is one of the burdens of being in the support of diaspora. And in the Senate, I was remiss. So Senator Heinrich out of New Mexico is our champion in the Senate. He's got a lot of allies who help him. But it really struck him because New Mexico had such a struggle becoming a state. And they had the same attacks. Oh, it's too Hispanic. Oh, they don't speak the language enough. Oh, are they mature enough to do that? Oh, part of them was part of Mexico. Can you be part of the United States if you're part of Mexico? All these, these arguments that I feel like are excuses. But we got to continue, and we'll have a bipartisan effort with potentially the future governor of Puerto Rico and myself helping lead the charge. And look, we came up with a compromise that the House is now ready to go with the right leadership to pass it again. It actually gets easier. When I was fighting to pass a Venezuela TPS out of the House twice, the first time it took me a year and a half, second time, first 3 months, boom, it went right out. Then, of course, in that case, President Biden is able to do that by executive order. In this case, it definitely has to be an act of Congress, as you eloquently mentioned in your opening.
Yeah, and we're hoping that we have tried very hard to get both the right and the left voices here in Central Florida to join us. They're sponsoring the radio stations, the talk shows, the newspapers. Like I said, we're running ads in the local newspaper, giving free tickets to everybody who is not a lawyer can come for free and listen to participate in that. So just remind you guys, it's September 28th, 29th, Florida A&M Law School. Give us a call. The numbers will be underneath on the screen below us, so you can be able to get your ticket and be able to participate. Listen to the experts about what's going on in Puerto Rico from around the country. So thank you very much, Congressman, for your participation today and your leadership in this particular issue, which is so important. And I know we'll probably battle this for a couple of years, but it's algo del corazón, and we do it with love because we love the people, we love our nation. We believe the Constitution is equality for all Americans and all people who choose to be affiliated with it. They don't have to. We're going to treat everyone fairly, but you got to have the structural, the institutional situation correctly done. And right now, Puerto Rico is not on the right side of the structural form of how they can, how get equal protection under the law. So thank you so much.
Two things that close us out, Tony. I think you froze up a sec. Two things that closes out. One, when I was walking up the stairs, I was reminded of my Fiat Award from when I was in the state Senate, the lunchbox award that you got me. And thinking about how, like my father and my great fathers in the fields in the 20s and 10s. And so I'm going to bring my fiambrera along every day and work as hard as they did. But I'll leave you with this, and on the floor during the debates. My great-grandmother, Altagracia Casanova, was born in 1898 in Puerto Rico, and she lived 96 years. I got to meet her back in my father's auntie, but our family, a little kid, I got to visit them when they still had a working farm down there. And I got to meet Altagracia. She had this farmer's grip that if you shook her hand, it was like it would just crush you, right? Because she was used to working in agriculture. She was tough, right?
Yes.
And lived a long life. And I just thought about, like, she was born right around the time that Puerto Rico was conquered by the United States, when Teddy Roosevelt, charged up San Juan Hill, and she lived her whole life in the territory. And I would say my family, this is something that most of us are pretty supportive of being the 51st star on the flag. And I think about her life and the life of my grandparents and parents and this generation. We have been at this for many generations, but we have no other choice. We just got to keep plugging along and bring our fiambreras along, working every day. And hopefully one day in our lifetimes, we'll see what would be one of the biggest civil rights movements in the history of our nation coming for landing. But I take hope that we've had as much success as we ever had last term. It's not there by any means, but we got to keep on working.
Thank you very much, Congressman. I'll see you in September.
Thanks, Tony.
Take care.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Hi, if you like this content, please like and subscribe below. You don't have to be a lawyer. Just like to know what they know and how they know it. This is your place. Puerto Ricans are citizens of the United States but cannot vote for president or Congress. And only with your help will this colonial status ever end, one way or another.